Welcome to Identity Disc. My name is Reese Haydar and I'm with my friend and associate and member of the Portmere Heritage Foundation, Nadeem Rangzeb.
Hi, hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you for asking. Are you saying it to me or are you saying to those who are listening?
I'm saying to you and to our listeners most importantly.
Absolutely, they are what matters. Okay, Nadeem, let's get this going because I've got a series of questions I want to ask you about our appearance on this radio station, BBC Asia Network. Now, you've been pestering these guys now for some time. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. So I've been listening to Asian Network for quite a while now. Mm-hmm. And I've been dipping in and out. Some of the topics that interest me, I do phone in quite a lot.
Yeah.
And give my opinion on it as well, or try to challenge some of their guests.
Yeah. And in the past, they've not been very receptive, have they?
Yeah, but I have asked them, not on the phone in, but I phoned them up. I said, guys, you should do a subject on the vilification of the Mirpuri community because there's a lot of that happening on the social media and for a long time. It's been happening in the media as well, in the print media and amongst people. And they said they were interested, you know, and they never really chased it. But I kept on, kept on phoning in basically to ask for this subject. But then they start doing this little debate, small debate. Phoned in again and I let them know again.
Yeah, sure.
You should do a subject. And they said, we'll look into it. And
that's when they phoned me. And I got the impression somehow that they didn't know that I was associated with you.
Yeah, they didn't know that. No.
No, so they thought that we were somehow separate organizations or whatever. You being an individual who listens to the radio station, and I'm somehow part of this organization called the Portmere Foundation. Because when they spoke to me, I got the impression that they thought I would somehow offer a rebuttal against what you were saying. That I was somehow, if you like, they wanted to bring some balance to this discussion. So, you're someone who's saying that there's a problem, and I would say, well, if there is indeed a problem, it's not that big a problem anyway. This guy's just exaggerating it, type thing. And you said, because you was at the studio when this guy phoned in, this Naz dude phoned in. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember that vividly.
And you said that the impression that you had was that this guy was going to be pro-Mirpuri.
That's what they told me, that they thought this person agreed with us. But then when he phoned in, he gave a completely different, opposite opinion what he thought about Mirpuris.
So do you see what they're doing? This is what I'm saying to you. I'm saying to you, even the people behind these productions are biased in how they view Mirpuris.
Yeah, and but what I'm saying to you, they didn't know that. They were shocked themselves.
Right, but what I'm saying to you is why then, the point is, look, this guy phoned in, and they said he's going to be pro-Mirpuri, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm saying, if somebody had phoned in and said, I'm anti-Mirpuri, would they have allowed him to come onto the show?
I don't know. I think they probably wouldn't have. I don't really know.
The media is very biased. The Asian media is very biased against Mirpuris, and it's not the fault of those who are funding these, productions from taxpayer money, as is the case with the BBC. It's the people that work in these organizations. They're very biased against Mirpuris, particularly from the British Pakistani fraternity.
Go back. When he phoned in, when he was saying those things, I was thinking like, I wasn't surprised, kind of shaking, agreeing with what he was saying. The fact that, hey, there you go, this is a good example of someone who hates Mirpuris. I was trying to explain it to the presenter. I'm glad he's phoned in because I'd rather have it out there and people know that this is the kind of venom that people are spewing against us. People should know about this. This is the kind of, I'd rather have him on saying what he really feels about Mirpuris than have someone who's just agreeing with us. So, because people should know how other Asians or Pakistanis feel about us. Why do people, if they don't understand this is what's going on.
Okay, but look, that's cool. So we said that. You said that at the radio station.
We're going to put that on the podcast as well.
Okay, now, but this is the thing. What people need to understand: subtle prejudice exists in all communities. This isn't something that's just restricted to Pakistanis or Asians. Pakistanis are racists, as are Indians, as are no doubt members of the Mirpuri community. We have racists amongst us. It's not that, somehow we're perfect communities and this particular brush should only be reserved for for mainstream white society. That's a little unfair. We know racists exist within our society, and we know that many of them have been influenced by subtle prejudice and not merely malignant prejudice, the type that we saw during World War II, that was responsible for the extermination of 6 million Jews. That's malignant racism, that leads to persecution. But this is the thing that I want to say. This is what I would like to discuss with you, Nadeem. If you didn't go looking for Mirpuri vilification within the British Pakistani community, within our dynamics in terms of how we interact with one another, you will find it. It's there. Like other forms of racism, other forms of prejudice, you need to go look for it, actively find it. The thing about the Mirpuris is it's there. You don't need to do anything. You'll just come across it. You'll encounter it in terms of the conversations you're going to have with people, in terms of the books you read, in terms of the social media websites you come across, or the apps, or whatever you do, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, whatever, the social media app, you will come across Mirpuri vilification. It's as if the British Pakistanis that are involved in this can't help themselves. And more people I speak to are coming to that realization that they're saying it's absolutely the case that this vilification is vile, is disgusting, and it absolutely exists. You have to be pretty brain dead to think it doesn't exist. It's so obvious, it's so common.
Yeah, but in the past, what I've noticed on BBC Asia Network, they've had guests who they've let just say whatever they like about the Mirpuri community. They've had this woman called, I think her name was Baroness Fletcher or something like that.
Okay.
She said whatever she wanted. No, she wasn't even challenged. It's only recently when I've said it a few times on the station, and I've said it. I mean, a couple of years ago, I was at the South Bank Centre, an Asian network were doing a recording. Nihar was there, and a few other Asian.
He's the host. He was one of the hosts. Okay.
And I shouted out, I said, Mirpuris are vilified by other Asians. And he agreed. He just said, but he didn't give me any chance or to, it was just the conversation started from the fact that I was trying to explain to the audience and to him was that there's one community that isn't represented by the BBC Asian network, and that's the Mirpuri community. That's where I was coming from.
But okay, look, so
and he took the mic off me while I was trying to explain it. People are more interested in carving out their own careers, so
you're not important. This is what I'm saying to you.
That's why I was so frustrated. I shouted. I said, and Mirpuris are also vilified by other Asians.
This is my point to you, Nadeem. You don't matter because you come from the Mirpuri community. There is so much prejudice against this community that it's unbelievable that people think that they could just say whatever they want and there are no repercussions. You cannot make racist comments about Pakistanis or Indians or about black people or about Jews or whatever. There will be repercussions. But I think that it doesn't matter. You don't have to be very overtly racist about Mirpuris, but you could say everything that's just prejudicial and biased and bigoted and if you were to make these comments about other communities, it would be recognized. You will have people acknowledging that these are racist statements, that these are prejudicial, bigoted statements. But when it comes to the Mirpuri community, there's no such reaction. And this is what I want to talk about. Why has this happened?
I've experienced that directly by these people. In the past.
Give me an example.
I'll give you another example. I'm just trying to remember. So there was a lady who there was a journalist who did an article for New Statesman. She was a guest, and so was Mobeen Azhar. And it was about the fact that these reality, documentaries about Asians, they're not helping actually. That's what her argument was, and they don't really represent these communities. And I phoned in and I said, there's one community they don't represent is the Mirpuri community. But these people go into these communities. This is what I said. These people go into these communities. People like Mobeen and other documentary makers, they take our community and reappropriate it into a Muslim documentary or into an Asian documentary. Most importantly, they discard the Mirpuri identity. I didn't get a response at all. It was like, here I am, here you are guys, you're going in, you're making documentaries about these communities, but you want to appropriate them in your own way. Who does it benefit? It doesn't benefit those communities.
No, it doesn't.
What I was trying to explain to these people was that Mirpuris make up South Asian landscape, a huge proportion of the South Asian landscape. They definitely make up pretty much so the British-Pakistani landscape. If you see or know about a British-Pakistani neighborhood, a proper neighborhood, it's predominantly made of Mirpuri people. And you're going into those communities and you're making these programs about those communities, but you're reappropriating them because you don't come from these communities, you don't understand these communities. That's the problem.
So, but you know, when you say that they're reappropriating, so they're going to Mirpuri communities and then they're reappropriating. What are they reappropriating?
So there was a documentary, I think it was a year ago. It was about, it's called Extremely British Muslims, and it was that around Central Mosque. But basically, they've gone into a Mirpuri, a mosque that was founded by from my grandfather's generation, believe it or not. And I know a lot of the people who founded. Later on, things have changed now, but that area, mostly is
I understand what you're saying. Okay, so so what you're saying is, so when it comes to the numbers, they rely on the Mirpuri community because they don't have a community.
They don't.
Mirpuris have a community. So in terms of actual neighborhoods, that can be associated with a particular demography, an ethnic demography from a particular part of Pakistan or the Western Himalayas or South Asia. That demography we can call the Mirpuri demography or Pakistanis because they make up overwhelmingly, the majority Pakistani population, and they exist as communities. It's not a case of they exist as individuals or I come from the Mirpuri community, but I live amongst the Lahori community. There's no parity between a Lahori community and a Mirpuri community. There are no Lahori communities. There is no Karachi community.
There's no Karachi or Lahori community.
Right.
There is no.
Okay. So what you're saying is, so they use our numbers. They go into our communities, claiming to be from these communities. They use us, and then they use their own labels. They make no. So when they want to talk about Mirpuris, they talk about Mirpuris negatively. If they want to talk about Mirpuris Pakistanis in a negative way, they use a Mirpuri label.
Mirpuri, yes.
Right,
true,
but the moment they speak about themselves, or they want to present themselves in a positive way, they speak about Pakistanis.
Yeah. So
they don't speak about Mirpuris.
So if you get Asian or a Pakistani journalist or a filmmaker or a program maker and say, this is my community, this is a Pakistani community, and if you want to present it in a positive way, that's what you would say. But at the same time, I would like to be critical about my community. So
and then they use the Mirpuri label, right?
Yeah, well, they probably wouldn't even use that, but when it's on a positive level, you would say, I'm part of that community. But if you're going to be directly pure, you're going to talk about Mirpuri community, you would say, well, this is the Mirpuri community.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm from a different part of Pakistan. Then you make a documentary about that.
So there's no shared fraternity.
There's no shared fraternity
between us, the Mirpuris, the overwhelming majority of British Pakistanis, supposedly British Pakistanis, and this minority of self-affirming Pakistanis who seem to be a little deranged in their anti-Mirpuri statements. And when I say a little deranged, I'm not trying to be deliberately trying to use inflammatory language, but this is exactly how it sounds. I mean, the level of hatred that exists against our community is shocking.
So let's go back a bit now.
And there's no one to challenge it from the British Pakistani community. So there is no shared fraternity between us and the British Pakistanis, despite the fact that we've got all these flag-waving Mirpuris, waving the Pakistani flag. But the others within those circles, they don't really consider these guys genuine Pakistanis. Just absurd to be in that situation.
One of the things, if you look back at the timeline, in the beginning for these programs and these people who used to write about these South Asian communities, in the beginning they used to ignore the Mirpuri community like it never existed.
Well, we
So
don't
we've
exist
gone-
now, do
yeah,
we, in
yeah, but
terms of paper?
What's
on
happened
paper.
is it's gone from not existing to being vilified. For a long time, we were like, see, there's this community called Mirpuris. They're from this part of the. There's this
From
part
Pakistan.
of Pakistan.
Or Kashmir. They used to use the term Kashmir.
It's a rural, backward area, and that's why they're like that. For a long time, for at least 10, 15 years, this same stuff was recycled. Now it's gone from there, appropriating these community into programs that benefits them. What they've realized that as a community, as a neighborhood, we're a leverage for them to make programs. They can, they can further their careers by making a program about our community.
So
we don't have zero say in it. So what I'm
look.
trying to tell our listeners, especially from Mirpuri communities,
from the Jammu Kashmir community.
the Jammu community, the
Jammu
fact that
Kashmir
you
community,
guys are not in control of your narrative, other people are making programs about you now.
Look. I've been having conversations with members of my own community, obviously, and what's striking is there's definitely a recognition that we're not part of a shared fraternity with British Pakistanis. But what is interesting is the people that are saying this, they don't have any ill will against ordinary Pakistanis. So when you speak to them, they always make a distinction between ordinary Pakistanis, in Pakistan, in the other parts of the diaspora, whether in Canada, Australia, America. There's no beef, if you like, against that community and our community, for instance.
So we grew up thinking that we were part of Pakistan. We learned the Urdu language. We knew the.
Well, we don't speak Urdu, do we?
We don't speak, but we were very curious to learn about that.
It was
language.
forced upon us in the mosques and the community centres. Because it was Pakistan's Qawmi Zaban.
But then we ended up learning.
It had,
we
had
were,
zero relevance to our lives. I mean, come on. What I'm saying is let's have this honest conversation.
What I'm saying is, in the beginning, it was very different. We thought we were part of a fraternity.
Yeah.
We watched the cricket games. We watched our parents watched. They watched the Pakistani dramas. And
Bollywood
and Bollywood. You thought you were part of something. At the same time, we also thought we were part of the British Asian fraternity as well. That they were representing us. But
you don't feel part of the British Asian fraternity?
I mean, for a long time, I felt like that.
Right.
The way we want to articulate our identity, there hasn't been given a direct space for it. And it's not like I'm asking for this amazing platform so we have this dominant role in it. It's just a direct space for us to explore our heritage. We have not been given at all. Zero. BBC in the days, they used to do this cheesy Mirpuri program, but that meant nothing. When you got one of the biggest South Asian diasporas living in UK, they should have a lot more say.
But apparently, even that BBC program, there was criticism that the people weren't even speaking Mirpuri. There's some other language that they thought was Mirpuri.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. Even
the fact that they called him Mirpuri,
right,
which he wasn't even, because it's a Pahari. Pahari is the proper word.
But that's what I'm.
So lazy to do any research into it.
Exactly, in terms of the dialect that's spoken in Mirpur.
Yeah, you're right.
So they just found some Urdu speaker, some Punjabi speaker who decided to. He told them probably that I speak their language and I can do it, and they just gave him a platform.
It was just a box ticking exercise, as far as I'm concerned. But today you got the media, and especially even now the South Asian people, program makers, they're obsessed with our community. They want to make dramas, man. They're set, that I'm talking about Ackley Bridge, set in a Mirpuri, Yorkshire Milltown. They're trying to.
Yeah, but
I
don't have any problem with that, Nadeem. Honestly, I don't have any qualms. I don't have any qualms with them giving us. This is the space that we wanted. But where I have a problem is where they say to us, we're going to give you a space. We're going to talk about Mirpuris because obviously you are the largest British Pakistani community, and people need to know that Mirpuris make the majority British Pakistani community. But for them then to do it in a negative way, that's what I have a problem with them. So that they could somehow feed into those stereotypes. Those misleading stereotypes.
They can keep on
lazy stereotypes that have been created and pushed by British Pakistanis.
So one of the tropes they've come up with, these a new stereotype character trope, is that a grown-up Asian Mirpuri woman who came over here via marriage when she was 16. This is the new trope.
Because apparently we only marry our cousins constantly.
Marry our cousins, and they're 16-year-olds, and we from a village, and we bring them over here.
Exactly.
And what they're doing is they're creating characters out of that. Now, the whole idea our podcast is to challenge these stereotypes, these reinforced, imposed stereotypes. That's not even true, though.
No, it isn't. But we also need to we need to explain to our listeners why this is happening, and how they are contributing to the problem at hand by not addressing it, by not challenging it, by not standing up and being counted, and saying, I'm from the Mirpuri community. Officially, we have no recognition. We've got so many people ticking the Punjabi box. Mirpuri is not Punjabi. I don't understand. We've got these pan-Punjabi pseudo-experts on Wikipedia and social media that are producing their own material, and they want to present the Mirpuri language as Punjabi. No linguist has ever said that the Mirpuri spoken in Mirpur district, in Mirpur division, is related in the sense of, being closely connected to that language, i.e. evolving from that language, coming from that language. No linguist has ever said that Mirpuri is a dialect of Majhi Punjabi, the Punjabi that's spoken in Lahore and Amritsar and these areas. No one's ever said this. They've always made a distinction between Central Punjab and West Punjab, and when they use the term Punjab, they're using it geographically for where these dialects are spoken. So because they keep using this term Punjabi, this is an assumption that we're talking about the same thing when they're not. Mirpuri is a completely different, separate language to the language spoken on the Punjab plains, in Lahore and these areas. Our dialect is related to Patwari, but Patwari is spoken in the Portaha Plateau, in the Portaha Uplands, which was added to the Punjab province. So the Patwaris think that they're speaking Punjabi on account of their area being part of the Punjab province, but they're not speaking the Punjabi that's spoken in Lahore. Now, there's a point why I'm saying this. These same bigoted individuals then go on to say that these Patwaris can't speak Punjabi properly. So they're actually insulting their own, so-called Punjabi brothers and sisters. Social media is full of such slurs, and you could talk to people. Somehow that they're speaking some backward Punjabi. How is it Punjabi in the first place? They're speaking their own dialect. You don't have any right to insult them on the basis of their language, and we then fall into that trap. Do you understand what I'm saying, Nadeem? So this is what's happening. So Mirpuris need to stop ticking the Punjabi box and saying we speak Punjabi because they feel ashamed speaking Mirpuri because this false identity has been imposed upon you, and they're somehow making you feel upset and feel that you're somehow less worthy. This is what's happening. We've got this disease in our community where Mirpuri shy away from any sort of identification with their own community and their community's labels. Did you create the Mirpuri label, Nadeem?
No.
Did I create the Mirpuri label?
We never created it.
Okay, so this label has been imposed upon us, so we need to take ownership of this label. Right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm asking you a very serious question, and this question also should be, answered by everyone else listening to this. And I want you to be honest with me. Has your father, has your mother, your grandfather, grandmother, your family, have they ever once identified as Punjabis?
We've never.
Okay.
Never.
I have never, ever, in my whole entire life, ever come across Mirpuris identifying as Punjabis. They've never ever done that. So whose label is this that's being constantly imposed upon us, thrown upon us? Because someone somewhere has decided that Mirpuris are Punjabis because we know what's best. Despite the fact that the Punjab is a penumbra, no one knows for sure how it emerged. No one knows. It's
a big place, though.
It's a big place.
It's a huge.
It's expanded. It's contracted. I mean, the word Punjab is used in various capacities. The idea of the Punjab was a metaphor used by the Mughals. They used it for a metaphor. They used it as a metaphor for a particular part of their Lahore province, which then over time the word Punjab was being used as a metaphor for the Lahore province. But then over time, then the idea emerged of a Punjab geography.
I'm sure.
And then
a few
over time emerged the idea. There's loads of books on this, Nadeem. What are you saying? There's loads of books.
I'm saying there's for the Anglican readers, like a huge book that only deals with Punjab and the complexities. of it.
So the Punjabis that are writing about their Punjab obviously are going to be Punjabi centric because they're writing about their own region. I don't blame them for doing that. Okay, this is what I'm saying. We as Mirpuris, we have been excluded from these discussions. We have been excluded from such discourse. This is ridiculous what's happening, and we have to get to a stage where there has to be recognition across this community that this community is being dealt with unfairly. The people that are representing us, they do not consider us part of their fraternity, and we can prove this through X, Y, and Z. So that's the reason why I gave the example of language. We're going around telling people that we speak Punjabi, but the Punjabi people, they don't consider us, they don't consider our dialects Punjabi. If the Patwaris want to consider their dialects Punjabi, so again, let's clarify. When I speak about Paharis, I'm speaking about a particular people from Jammu Kashmir. So that's my community. The Patwaris, they feel part of Pakistan, so they're reconciled with the idea of Pakistan, and many of them also are engaged in this anti-Mirpur bashing and vilification. And I have my own theories as to why this is happening. I think that they're doing this because of solidarity, because their numbers are so small, and because the Pakistanis from the urban areas of Pakistan, Lahore, Karachi, these areas, have been slating Mirpuris for such a long time. These Patwaris, who are our ethnic kinsmen, they want to create distance. So then they overcompensate by saying, "Oh, we're not Mirpuris. They're the Mirpuris, and they're like this." So then they start to get involved in all this Mirpuri bashing. There's another demography that's also involved in this Mirpuri bashing, and that's the caste Kashmiris who come from Punjab and these areas. Their ancestors, forebears, the vast majority of them did not come from Wadi Kashmir, a small area within Jammu Kashmir. They came from the wider state. When there were famines in this region, these famines didn't just affect people in Wadi Kashmir, it affected people across the region. The Kashmir region historically was much bigger than the valley. Paharis, our ethnic kinsmen, have been living in what is assumed to be Kashmir, an ethnic Kashmiri space, for centuries. Kashmir doesn't just belong to Kashmiri speakers, the people speak Kashmiri. It also belongs to us Paharis. So lots of people were fleeing the valley and they're going into the Punjab, but also from other areas. There's this idea somehow that the Pakistanis are using the word Kashmir for Jammu Kashmir, and they're being duplicitous. And this is another thing that, this is a narrative that the Indians are pushing because of politics.
Well, this is Indians you're talking about in India, not
so
here.
This is what I'm saying, and here as well, this is what I'm saying. So all these unlikeliest of bedfellows, if you like, you understand, have converged to say bad things about Mirpuris because they're pushing their own agendas, not realizing that there's no shred of truth in anything that they're saying.
I think now there's slightly people a bit more careful because there's people like you and me who are saying it, that we are being vilified. There was
I don't even think we need to say it. The vilification is obvious. You speak to white people. If they read some of the tweets that we are showing,
we got to remember there was
internet.
There was a period that we were just bashed. We were just called all kinds of names.
Yeah.
And we never countered those abuse we got. But now there's a conscious that we are being vilified. Now there's got to be another conscious, the fact that people who are making programs they're using us as a leverage to get whatever they want from us. That's what we should be talking about now. Things like that. That's what's happening. BBC is doing this year in August the Big Asian Summer. It's a mouthful, isn't it? The Big Asian Summer. Basically, program based around Asians. Now, it'd be interesting to know how much the Mirpuri community is going to be represented. I mean, I've seen some of the stuff, like some of the press release. It doesn't seem like there's a lot about Mirpuri community. These are the things our young people from our background should be talking about. How come our community is not represented? And by the way, if our community is represented, we'll do the job. We don't want another Asian from a different background talking about our stories. We can tell our stories. We are intelligent enough to tell our stories. I don't want you to tell me, about my story.
Your lived experiences?
Yeah, our lived experiences. Why are you coming into our areas and appropriating these programs? Why are you doing this? We want to tell our side.
This is why I'm saying we need to just acknowledge that the British Pakistanis that are speaking about our community are disingenuous? I mean, it's pretty obvious they're disingenuous.
They are. They are.
They have no. There's no. They don't even feel part of us. I mean, it's weird that somehow we're being encouraged to feel part of this British Pakistani community, whilst the Mirpuris are being actively excluded from it. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, when you think about it, you think, is this really happening? And yes, it's actually happening. So how has it got to this stage that no one has picked up on this before and said,
yeah,
what on
I
earth?
personally blame our own community for not, taking control of their narratives. And when people are listening right now, this is what's happening, because you people out from our community, because you're not coming out and telling your side. Other people are willing to tell, willing to exploit our community for their own benefits. They're telling our stories from their own perspective.
Right.
They're having their own spin on our communities.
Right.
We're not coming out and telling our stories, basically. That's what I'm trying to say.
So the word Mirpuri is used in mainstream society, and then you have British Pakistani saying, come to us and we'll fill the gaps. We'll explain to you who Mirpuris are. We'll tell you everything about this community. And these guys do not have benign intentions.
One of the things they say...
I know the thing, Nadeem, this might sound conspiratorial, because, people love conspiracies. So these guys are talking about conspiracies and stuff, and they're being all conspiratorial. Listen, this is not a conspiracy. This is happening. This is absolutely happening. The Mirpuri community is a dispossessed community. You are excluded from mainstream British Pakistani, whatever that they're doing. When it comes to celebrating the British Pakistani community, Mirpuris are not part of it. The way these British Pakistanis look down at Mirpuris, it's disgusting.
Okay.
And I have, there comes a point when we have to use this language.
So
we can't just all be PC and say, oh, let's not speak. Let's be more tempered in how we present it and stuff. This is a major problem, and it's been going on for many decades, and there will be serious repercussions if this problem is not addressed. Overthink it in your head. Just say it.
Okay, I want to talk about, so this program, the BBC's, BBC has announced the Big British Asian Summer.
Okay.
So this program, they've got, so let me highlight some of the programs. There's one called A Passage to Britain.
Okay.
That's about...
Is that when they came on the ships and stuff?
Yeah. That's what it's about. And then there's a Bollywood, the world's biggest film industry. It's presented by Anita Rani. She grew up in Bradford. But she travels to Bollywood and explores the Bollywood history.
Okay.
So that's one. Searching for Mom. That's going to be on BBC Two. It's a 2-hour-long episode. It's about people going to the subcontinent. Over 2,000 babies have been adopted from India and Sri Lanka the last 40 years. So it's going to be about India and Sri Lanka.
Okay.
Then there is another one. It's called British Asian Men. 60. So this is interesting. British Asian Men, 60 years after the first major waves of immigration from Indian subcontinent. Why are there such disparities in how well different communities are faring in the UK? And why are women from South Asian backgrounds now outstripping their male peers?
Is that the one that...
Yes. That's the one you got in touch with, I think.
They got in touch with me, okay.
Oh, they got in touch with... That's the one that...
She got in touch with me because she wanted confirmation bias. She was looking for... When I spoke to her...
So can you tell us more about that? Because
I was contacted by a production company. Swan, was it? Swan Films?
Swan's Films, yeah.
Something
Swan
like that.
Films, it's called.
Swan Films, okay, right. So she contacted me saying that she wanted to ask me some questions and if I could help her out. She said she was a researcher. And as I started having a conversation with her, I realized that she was looking for confirmation bias, that she was very prejudicial in her views. And what struck me was that she didn't know much about the community, despite the fact that she said she was researching this community. And that kind of didn't sit well with me, because I thought, okay, so she's got an image of this community. How can you phone someone up and say, I'm a researcher and I just want to pick your brain, so to speak? But then you're speaking to someone who's already made their mind up. So she had already come to me with misconceptions. She had misconceived views.
What were the misconceived views like?
That we were backwards, and the other Asians looked down at us, and the whole South-North divide. That the Pakistanis in the South are doing very well, prosperous, and those in the North aren't. And just some lame stuff that she was saying, in terms of we're not very good when it comes to doing business. That's a comment she made.
But what are we more interested in, academic background or business or sports? What was her take on?
So her take was that we weren't very good at anything, really. That's the impression that I got from her.
Is that what she said? Or
she didn't say that, but that's exactly what came across.
I mean, normally what people usually say, when TV makers, I've come across a few, they usually say some of the most laziest stereotypes, generally speaking, about ethnic minorities, that black people, they're more interested in sport, Asians are more interested in academic. Academia. Yeah. Asian people's more interested.
Minus the Mirpuris, right?
Yeah.
Because apparently we're just.
So if you break it down, Pakistanis within the Pakistani, Punjabis are probably more interested in academia, and Mirpuris are they interested in academia, sports, or what's the impression you got of her?
That we were more concerned about making money. That's exactly how she said it.
Is that what she said?
That's what she said. She said, speaking to other Asians, the impression that I got was that Mirpuris are more concerned about making money. That we're not really concerned about education. It's a lazy stereotype that has been pushed by people who get something out of making that statement because of separation. They want to separate themselves from this community, so they say, "Look, we're educated. They're not very educated."
Did you challenge her on that? Did you?
Of course, I did. I was very irritated by what she said, and I think she.
Did you tell her those are stereotypes?
I said that. I told her I was very frustrated with her stereotypes, and that she was being very bigoted in what she was saying, and she really didn't. She didn't really know much, to be honest. I even said to her.
Yeah.
I said to her, the proof's in the pudding. When this, before this program is aired, before this documentary is aired, if you present Mirpuris in a certain light that they're wearing tracksuit bottoms and they can't speak properly, that is proof to me that you are actively searching this confirmation bias. So they're not looking to, dispel myths. They are looking to support the myths, to substantiate the myths. So they actively go looking for this. So they actively go looking for educated Lahoris, people from Lahore, from Punjab province, that are educated, that are in their mind sophisticated and suave and all the rest of it. You understand? And this holds true for Karachi and other areas. They actively go looking for these sorts of people, as if there aren't any, in terms of how they stereotype communities, there aren't any rotten apples from Karachi, there aren't any rotten apples from Punjab. But all the rotten apples, we need to put them in a Mirpuri basket. This is what they're doing. And this is exactly what she was looking for, in terms of the conversation that I had with her.
Was it like that conversation couldn't have lasted that long if you're challenging her. She's probably not in, you've confronted it. What happens when you confront someone
about half an hour
about stereotypes? They want to get away. I can't to deal with this. This person's telling the truth about the stereotypes I have about this community, and you're telling me this other. That's the reaction I usually get from someone when I tell them you're completely wrong about me, Breeze. What you've said is bang out of order.
But you know
they don't want to hear it.
No, she didn't want to hear it. And you know what kind of shocked me also was because the way she was speaking, I felt that she was somehow self-affirming herself because of the way she was making this kind of divide between Punjabis. She used the term Punjabis and Kashmiris, and I said to her, "Are you Punjabi by any chance?" And she said, "Yes, I am." That's when it struck me that these people are so biased in how they present that community that they don't realize they get something out of it themselves.
So the person who's
it's almost validation for them. That look, we're affluent and we're doing really well for ourselves because the proof is in the pudding. We're so different to the Mirpuri community. As if the Sikh Punjabi community doesn't have its problems, the Hindu Punjabi community doesn't have its problems. They have major problems in their communities. They've got rotten apples like the rest of us. Trust me on this. And my Jat Sikh brothers will know what I'm talking about.
The presenter is Marine Beg.
Yeah, she's from Lahore.
She's definitely not from our background, I think.
Right, so she's from Lahore. This is the impression that so she's going to present the Lahori community positively, and they're going to present the Mirpuri community negatively. You mark my words.
So what happens with these kind of programs? The impression I get that this is what people don't realize. People from Mirpuri background, they pick Bradford. This is how lazy they are. When majority of the Mirpuris are all over, the Bradford, yes, huge.
Wherever.
Birmingham.
Right. Birmingham.
Yeah, but they want to go to
Ealing, Reading, right? Luton.
But they choose Bradford, because they know very easy for them to find a very negative story. So they go there. They probably go to the worst part of Bradford, and that's the thing. Not the worst in their eyes; it's the worst. Predominantly Mirpuri neighborhoods. They'll go there. They'll start looking, exploring those areas. They're looking for something bad happens to them or something that they experience that they could put it on their documentaries and programs. They're just looking for it. What people will see, Bradford, it's those Mirpuris again. It reinforces the old stereotypes. And how is that good? How is that good? They don't understand these communities, and then it's patronizing as well. We sympathize, we feel sorry for these communities. Don't feel sorry. We don't need for you to feel sorry for us. So this program, British Asian Man, it's called, working title, and it's people from our community should watch out for this documentary and look at what they're doing to us.
So this is a very unhealthy subtext, right? Okay, so the community is being deliberately presented in a negative way, and the people that are responsible for this don't feel that they have any shared sense of fraternity with us. So we need to start saying to ourselves, what are we part of? This British Pakistani, British Asian community that we're supposedly part of, how are we part of it?
What we've got to say is, look, let us tell our side. We don't want you.
Okay, no, so
we don't need you. We don't need any Pakistani person.
Right. So
to represent
us. Recognition. We need recognition. So we need to start using labels. So we need to actively identify as Mirpuris. I mean, the term I use is Pahari, British Pahari. I'm using the term British Pahari because I understand the word Pahari in terms of why the Mirpuris were being presented negatively. There's an attempt now on the part of certain elements within the British Pakistani community to distinguish Paharis from Mirpuris. But these people are so ignorant in why they're doing this. And also, I've noticed that people from Kotili are doing this too because that's part of the Pahar. And so Kotili people are saying, well, we're not Mirpuris, we're from Kotili because we're from a different district, despite the fact that Kotili is in Mirpur. So they kind of forget about that. But the reason why Mirpuris were looked down at historically was because they were Paharis.
We came from
the reason why the Plains people, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the reason why Mirpuris were looked down at by Punjabis was because we were Paharis. So that's it was an essential ingredient in the Mirpuri identity that you were from the hills and the mountains of Jammu Kashmir. You're Paharis. There's no separate Mirpuri identity from Paharis. You understand? And so this is the reason why they were looking down at us because we came from hills and mountains, and in our part of the world we don't make a distinction between hills and mountains. This distinction between hills and mountains, this is an English thing, an American thing. If it's 1,000 above, if it's 1,000 feet above sea level, if it's 2,000 feet above sea level, then that's a mountain. If it's less, then it's a hill. We don't have these distinctions in Indo-Aryan. The Pahar is rolling countryside. It's basically uplands. If you live on uplands, rolling countryside, so where the landscape is undulating, it's not flat. You're from the Pahar. So we're from the Pahar. So in terms of Balochis are from the Pahar. Half Afghans are from the Pahar. Do you understand? Okay, the Nepalese are from the Pahar. The people of Himachal Pradesh and Haryana and some parts of Haryana are from the Pahar. This is how the word was used. Okay, I'm using the term ethno-linguistically for the people of Jammu Kashmir that are part of this cultural sphere, part of the Mirpur cultural sphere. So I'm using that, we're Paharis. We as Paharis, we need to start using our own terms. We need to start identifying on the basis of our own labels. This is the problem. If we don't identify on the basis of our own labels, how on earth are we supposed to get official recognition? for what's happening to us. And without official recognition, we might as well lie down and have cars drive over us. It's that simple, it's that stark. We need official recognition for our community so that we can defend the community from these sorts of disparaging characterizations. The Mirpuri community is being disparaged. The Mirpuri community is being demeaned. Communities that are disparaged, that are demeaned, there are serious implications for members of those communities, because people start to perceive that community negatively and they don't want to have any dealings with that community. This is the story of persecution across the world. Persecution doesn't happen overnight. Discrimination doesn't happen overnight. You have a differentiation. Well, X, Y, and Z are like this. So, and we're like this, and we're not really like X, Y, and Z. So we don't really want to associate with X, Y, and Z. Somebody comes through your door. You're just an ordinary person having been influenced by the attitudes in mainstream society. And, you've got a certain perception of Mirpuris who come from a certain part of the world, who have certain entrenched viewpoints, certain attitudes that don't really sit well with you. And automatically, this person comes through your door. How are you going to react? Are you going to give him the job? Now, obviously, we have laws in place that stop people from behaving in that way. You're not allowed to discriminate on another person on the basis of the colour of their skin, or what religion they subscribe to, or whatever. But that's not the world we live in. Discrimination happens, persecution is happening. You know what I mean? So all that remains to be said now is goodbye to our listeners, and until next time, have a nice day.
Our next podcast will be dealing with this documentary that's coming out very soon, and I've just checked the name of it. It's called Lost Boys, ? What's gone wrong?
So this is a documentary that we spoke about earlier on in the podcast,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll be watching this documentary, and we're going to let you know our opinion about this documentary, and we'll be deconstructing the documentary itself and our own experience with the production company. We'll be talking about that as well. So look out for us, our third podcast. And think about what we've just said about how our community has been for a long time vilified, and today program makers have taken a keen interest in reappropriating, exploiting our community to make, whether it's a documentary or a TV drama.
Yeah, to give them content.
Yeah. So think about all that.